Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Growth Show. I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today, I'm with some special guests and friends, Erik and Emily Orton. Erik is an Emmy Award-winning writer and producer. Emily is an educator, author, and public speaker. Their life design framework mutes fear and accelerates growth. They are parents to 5 adult children, including their youngest with Down syndrome. They raised their family in Upper Manhattan for 23 years, where Erik worked on such shows as Wicked, Les Miserables, and The Phantom of the Opera. When their kids were 6 to 16 years old, Erik and Emily bootstrapped life aboard a fixer-upper sailboat in the Caribbean. They sailed as a family from St. Martin back to New York City. Their memoir about their experience, Seven at Sea, is a New York Times top 10 travel book. After life on the boat, they continue to travel the world with their children through Europe, the South Pacific, Africa, and across North and South America in planes, trains, boats, and vans. They are the co-founders of the Awesome Factory, a coaching and travel adventure company that leads retreats and sailing adventures all over the world. You guys, I love this. I love you. Thank you for being here. You're such incredible people. I appreciate having you on the show.
Well, thank you, Travis. We are excited. We've been looking forward to this for a while. So thanks for having us on.
I echo that.
Yes. And with our crazy schedules, I'm just glad that we get this opportunity to meet up and chat. I've read the book. My wife and I have heard you guys speak, and we've become friends. So thank you for your time. Talk to us a little bit. How in the world did you guys get here? From Manhattan to traveling across the world. Why don't you fill in some of those blanks of how you guys got to this position?
It's a little unexpected for sure. It wasn't a calculated move from the beginning. Why don't you say where it started?
Yeah, I think like any good adventure, it starts with a setback. It starts with being brought to your knees in some way. And I was working in the Broadway industry and had left Wicked and was producing some stuff on my own. And it was all going really well until it wasn't, basically. And found out that I was, kind of wiped out by a show that closed, and it brought us to zero financially. I was at this point unemployed and just really
A little heartbroken.
heartbroken is a great way to describe it. And I ended up just sort of going into a hole, and I got a temp job working in the financial district in Lower Manhattan, and just sort of walked away from the theater industry and was trying to heal up. And that's when I realized that there was a sailing school right downstairs from where I was working. And I mentioned it enough times to Emily that she encouraged me to go in and check it out. And I did, after overcoming, for me, what was really the trickiest part, which was, you know,
The
feel
head game.
yeah, the head game, which was, I felt like sailing was for other people. I felt like you had to be rich, you had to be well connected, you had to come from a sailing family, maybe. Those were the ways in, and I was broke and trying to recover financially, and did not come from a sailing background, and felt very out of my element. But with Emily's encouragement, I checked it out, and of course they were friendly and welcoming and happy to collect the fee for us to take sailing lessons, which is where we started. And basically we started taking sailing lessons as a family. I don't know if you want to expand on that at all.
Just, I really was encouraging him to do it because I could see that where he was, he didn't want to grow. And that's not really our nature. That's certainly not his nature.
I
And
was at my
where
job
he
when
was at his job, yeah, they kept trying to promote him and he didn't want to get promoted. And I get that. Like, you might strategically not grow in one area because you want to save your energy for a different area of growth, but he really was hiding and healing, I guess. And after a while, when this, I could tell it had sparked his curiosity and his interests, and it was an area where he wanted to grow, and I wanted that for him. But I was not feeling any personal lack of opportunity to grow. We had 4 going on 5 kids in this season, and we were new to homeschooling. And I just, my hands were full. I had a good group of friends, but I had a lot that I felt like on my plate already. And just as an excuse, I kind of a lifelong fear of deep water. So living in New York City and not really having pool access or never being a good idea to play in the Hudson River wasn't sad for me. I was perfectly fine staying out of the water. And so when he came and said, look, because I work nights, they can't get a class together during the day unless we all come. My first fallback was like, that's going to cost 4 times as much. And then he said, well, I'll pick up contract work. And I was like, wow, he is serious about this. Anyway, the kids were pretty excited. I reminded him that I'm really scared of deep water and that this was actually like a big ask for me, a big sacrifice for me to get out there. And he just said, well, that's why you need to learn how to sail. Then you never have to go in the water, which didn't turn out to be true, but was a great way to get me started. And yeah, that's how our family started taking sailing lessons, and it just kept progressing. And eventually he said, I think it wasn't easy. I won't say it was straightforward. There were a lot of moments where we thought this is a terrible idea. Our family does not like being on a boat together and things like that. But then we would kind of reflect and come back to it again later with a little more experience. And so over the few years, it came to the point where he said, hey, I think the 7 of us on a sailboat would be enough universe for me. And I said, when would you want to go? And he said, before our oldest daughter leaves for college. And I think she was about 14 at the time. And we were not even on boats with engines at this point. So we had a long way to go. But it really, I think, was an opportunity for our family to pull together over a shared project or a shared dream. And, there were by this time 7 of us, and we were each kind of in a different place with it at different seasons, sometimes more excited, sometimes more nervous, but we just kept coming back to the table and having the conversation and creating the vision together until we actually did, move aboard a sailboat. And then, of course, we just thought it would be an experience that we would have. We never imagined like, oh, we're going to write a book about this experience, or we're going to talk about this, or we're going to extract a framework, or we're going to run a sailing company. Not at all. Not at all. Like, we were just driving around trying to find, where are the boats? Like, we really started from scratch. So it's, looking back, you can say like how one thing led to the other, but we certainly did not have a
Sure.
plan going forward.
Well, I read the book. I've seen you guys speak, and what I love about this story is I've heard it in so many different ways. Actually, my wife was so inspired. She grabbed your book, and on the cruise ship after we heard you guys speak, she was reading it and she was giving me the updates. Like, oh my goodness, they're here. They made it there, and I was like, I don't, I'm just kind of like getting the play-by-play of what's going on. And she's like, oh my gosh, the boat's almost sinking, and like, I mean, I know they survived because they're all on our cruise ship.
Here.
It's like they're here, but whoa, like just hearing your story and then listening to it. I loved your book, loved the book 7 at Sea. And for those who need any type of motivation, like it is so motivating to hear someone who just was in you guys were in a rough spot, and rough is like very, very mild. And I think any business owner can relate to being in a rough spot. Mild, moderate, very healthily rough. It just really comes down to what's going on in here, right? That mindset. Emily, I think what you did for Erik in that moment of recognizing that he needed this for whatever reason was beautiful, was amazing. In my second book, Marry and Grow Rich, which if you haven't got this yet, guys, please grab it, marryandgrowrichbook.com. I talk about how business owners, the ones who are truly successful and have great marriages and families, they know where those boundaries are and they support each other. And it's not just one way. It's not just the maybe business owner spouse helping the business owner spouse, right? Typically, the wife helping the husband or whatever. If you're in business together, awesome. There's some other issues and boundary that we've covered in other podcasts actually about that, being married in business together, which you guys are making it happen. But I think the
And it's
important
not
part is it
easy.
is
Yeah,
not.
we
It is
agree with
not.
that assessment. You do need to have some like context and some, or
Yeah,
ongoing leveling up in communication and the what you call the boundaries or the plans or like who's doing what, just being clear. Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, that's in and of itself. But I think the important part there is that you guys embody this. And I saw that. I'm like, whoa, this is where it starts. It starts off with this tragedy, like any Shakespeare play. It's a tragedy story, right? Like, oh my goodness, how is this gonna fix itself? Um, and just one challenge after another. So I don't want to spoil everything for everyone. But let's dig into you guys actually have this fantastic framework. Why don't you talk to us about like, okay, you decided to then leave everything in New York and embark on this family journey. And what you brought out of this is some framework pieces that I think fit perfectly for anyone in business, for anyone trying to level up their marriage and family. I'll let you guys take this from here and kind of fill these pieces in. But talk to us about your framework. Talk to us about maybe back up a little bit. What are the problems that you guys think that most families, individuals, marriages face in life, and how your experiences helped to discover this framework? We'll go there.
Well, one of the things that we think a lot of people struggle with is worry. We're definitely faith people, and we know the commandment is in the scriptures over and over again, fear not. But we were very fearful. And this journey helped us, both of us in our own ways, move past that fear. And sometimes the fear is just because we don't think the other person is going to support what we want, or it might be the fear of not knowing what we want for sure. And for us, we like to start with, let's try to turn down the volume on fear and get clear on what is it that I'm actually seeking, and not in a selfish way, but I came here for a purpose way. And what is on my heart, what is my purpose here. And do you want to talk about what happens when we aren't clear on that, some of the downsides we've seen when we either don't know what we want or not sharing or pursuing what
Yeah,
we came here to do.
I think one of the challenges is that as as adults, as parents, we oftentimes will bury the things that really do light us up, that really, energize us, and we bury them out of a sense of duty and responsibility to, provide for a family, and those things are real. I'm not trying to minimize that, but I think that the great invitation that we have is to figure out how to do both. And because when we really suppress the things that call to us, I think, important needs are not being met. And when those needs are not being met, it results in destructive behavior in other areas to try and compensate. uh
Do you want me to go?
Sorry, I'm getting really distracted because my mom's upstairs, like talking, and I don't know if you can hear any of that. I think that oftentimes, out of a sense of duty or responsibility, we'll bury some of the things that bring us the most energy or that are most invigorating to us. Oftentimes, we'll suppress those interests or pursuits as providers because we say they're impractical or unlikely. And I think that that's a dangerous road to go, because ultimately, when we sort of bury those inclinations, um, we a certain need is not getting met, and a need for enthusiasm for life. And when that goes on for too long, then I think it can result in negative or destructive behavior to try and compensate. And so I actually think it's very healthy and wise and actually strategic to go for things that light you up, that you're enthusiastic about, because sorry, I'll speak for myself. When I'm pursuing something that I'm genuinely interested in, I have so much stamina, I have so much tenacity, I have so much energy that I can be relentless about it. And with that, I know that I will succeed. Whereas when I'm pursuing things that are a drag or a grind, sure, we all have to take out the garbage and we all have to do certain things that, we just did a podcast episode called Garbage is Not My Passion.
Yeah.
And, you still got to do stuff like that. But, in the overall pursuit of things that are really energizing, you have longevity, you have stamina, you have tenacity, like I said. And
Yeah, enthusiasm sustains endurance.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's very well said, Emily. And so I think it's a smart move to go for the thing that is energizing to you, even if it feels unlikely or impractical, because the chances of succeeding at something that are really energizing are so much higher just because you're willing to do whatever it takes to overcome it. And so
That may or may not be a career move.
yeah, it doesn't
Could
have to
be.
be a career move. It doesn't have to be professional or financial, but it has to have a place in your life. And so to your phrase, Travis, you need to have a purpose that aligns with your actual values. And when that happens, when you make that effort, magic can happen. And when you don't, I think it makes it harder than it needs to be.
So the first step of our framework, it's all sailing terms, is choose your own island. And we take a lot of time there just so that each individual can get really clear on what it is they want. And then if you're in a partnership, you go honestly and say, here are the things that matter to me. Here are the things that give me energy. Here are the things that I want to pursue or create or build. And now you're negotiating or, coming together with all your cards on the table instead of, well, my partner or my spouse, they probably want to hear me say this, or I think like I'm going to assume I can read their mind and they want this, and I don't really want that. I feel resentful, but if we're going to move forward, like it's about getting clarity. That first step of choose your own island is a really brave move to get clear and specific about what matters to you. And our next steps are chart your course, cast off. Casting off is a really scary part where you're actually taking some action, moving it out of the theoretical. And then we love you navigate out of the harbor. And a lot of times we just keep going back and, taking these small steps and then coming back from the unknown into the comfort zone until you build that stamina and confidence and vision that you're ready to go over the horizon. And we talk about setting your autopilot in a really positive way, which are the habits and practices and systems that you can put in place so that you aren't constantly draining yourself, making the decision over and over again to get where you want to go, and trusting your compass as you start to get close to the thing you thought you wanted. There's just a tendency to self-sabotage or to feel like you don't deserve it, or for whatever reason, I don't know why it is that way, but we've seen it happen again and again. And so that's definitely an important piece. Trust your compass. And then you arrive to your destination and you drop anchor. And for us, that includes celebrating. One of the things that builds success is the feeling of success, acknowledging that you achieved something, right? Expressing some gratitude and acknowledging your growth, and then staying in that for whatever amount of time feels right to you. You might be like, this is my new normal for a while until you're ready to stretch again. So that's the 7 parts. It's choose your own island, chart your course, cast off, navigate out of the harbor, set your autopilot, trust your compass, and drop anchor. And we found this has helped us in, well, certainly we extracted it from our sailing journey. We didn't have the template when we wrote the book. We kind of figured out this is what was happening, and then it 5x how quick we were doing other big adventures for us and big dreams, because now we knew, oh, it's going to get scary at this part, we're expecting it, or here we're going to have to trust our compass, or what are the autopilots we're going to put in place. And we now had a map, and it was for writing a book, for other kind of outdoor adventures, like for Erik climbing El Cap, he's done twice now. And even in relationship, it has just been really helpful across a spectrum of things we want to do. And we've had several coaching clients that have had a wide variety of interests, from people who want to live on a sailboat just like us to people who want to build like a community glamp ground and learning space, just it's been incredible to say this template is pretty flexible. And once you learn it, you can anticipate it and you can just, it doesn't necessarily make it easy, right? But you're going to get scared. So when you do get scared, it's less scary. And then you can move. It's a lower threshold to cross when you're expecting it and when it surprises you, I guess. So that template's been super useful.
It's like you anticipated that question. Like, you guys make it sound so easy, but in the book, it was like, how they don't even have a boat, and they're gonna go to where again? And then you got the boat, and not to spoil everything about the book, but you guys didn't even get out of your own harbor for like weeks, right? You were stuck there for like a month, over a month.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we did small trips, but yeah, there was a lot of heavy lifting at the front end with we bought a fixer upper.
Yeah. And our skills were needing to be created, as we did it and we got there. And I think there's a chapter called "Whose Dumb Idea Was This?" or something like that, because we finally made it. And then we're like, oh no, this was a terrible decision. And I love that you bring up like that we make it sound easy now, because yeah, if we've had some people say, oh, I thought this book was going to be about how your rich uncle gave you money and you traveled around and saw all these like things. And we're like, no, 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 no. We had very little money. We had even less experience, but we had a lot of hope. And I think because so many of us were in on the dream, anytime one person got cold feet, someone else was like, no, 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 come on, we can do this. If it had just been the two of us or one person, it would have been so much easier to bail out on it. And really, when we got there, we thought, maybe we can sell this boat back and go home, kick out our renters and sit on the couch
Thank my job back.
Sit on the couch all winter. It was so hard. It was so scary. And for those first few weeks, there was on St. Martin, there's an airport, I think it's called like Princess Juliana Airport or something like that. And every day flights would go out and I would just see them go and I would know like in 5 hours I could be home. When I'm sitting on this boat with no air conditioning and a tiny refrigerator, and when we bring our groceries, the onions fall in the water and we have to chase them down. And it was
Forgot about the
it was a challenge. Oh no, the food went under the dock. Well, now we gotta get a net. So anyway, yeah, it was a real challenge. However, we really turned the corner when we started making friends and we started building community. And even though there were 7 of us that, kind of made it to get out there, there were people who, once we were out there, were like, wow, you guys don't know anything, but good for you for getting out here. And we want to try to help you know some stuff so you can succeed. So we kind of learned in
There's a
action.
pity factor. There's some pity factor there. Right? They saw your plight and were like, okay, we like these guys. We want to
We
help
wanna-
them.
This one
Yeah.
couple was so great to us. Like they were so generous that not everybody was so generous, but most people were. And they just said, we've been sailing from Canada down to St. Martin for, I think, 10 or 11 years at that point, just every year. And she said, we have friends who have been preparing their boats for that same length of time and never feel quite ready. So they just really encouraged us and validated us by saying, even though you don't know everything and there's a lot of basic stuff you don't know, you'll figure it out pretty quick once you need to use it. Right. And they just said, good for you for getting off the dock. And so we have a lot of admiration for people who just make a start and learn from it.
We're really good at face planting into opportunities. And you fall flat on your face often enough, you learn those lessons real quick and you fall on your face a lot less. But I think a willingness to look dumb in front of other people is a real superpower. And if you can just sort of check your ego and be humble and be willing to learn, no matter how smart or successful you are in other areas, the more willing you are to look foolish in front of other people is going to be an indicator of how far you can go in whatever area you're trying to grow, in my opinion.
Well, you guys talk about this as a principle. It's casting off, right? In my opinion, like that's where this fits is, and so many people they're afraid to fail. I talk about this in my book, Marrying a Rich. They're afraid to fail, so they never try. They have ideas, like they're full of ideas. They've got these courses that maybe they would like to get to, but they're so afraid to actually take that first step that something might happen. When you guys are just saying it's just inevitable, it's going to happen, it's gonna fail, you are going to fail, but that's okay. That's just step one. That's just part of the plan. That's just part of this framework. Talk to me. What would you say is the most important part about all those steps in the framework? Is it the very first? Is it casting off? Is it celebrating? Like what is it for you guys, would you say? And it's okay if you have different answers. You don't have to agree on that.
Oh, I love
Oh,
that.
we always agree on everything. It'll be one and the same. Um, I don't know if this is the answer to your question, but I think. Sorry, let me gather my thoughts here. Um, you're talking about failure, and I think that perfectionism is, it's a little bit of a cliche, like better done than perfect, and it's a cliche because it's true. I guess I want to share this example because I fall into this trap that you're describing, Travis. I fall into it often. I think I'm trying to fight my way out of it right now in a few areas of my own life. And for example, this navigator framework that we're talking about, um, it's very there's sort of a feel good factor to this idea, like, oh, we're just going to sell off everything and go and do this crazy thing. That's not how we operate. That's not what we did.
Burn the old life,
Yeah,
start fresh.
Stick it to the man, chuck it all and go do your thing. We are not advocates of that approach. That is not how we've done it on anything. We are very we are big proponents of gradual and gentle and steady. And one example of what you're talking about, Travis, of sort of perfectionism or paralysis because of due to perfectionism. I really, really wanted to climb El Capitan in Yosemite since I was a teenager. And it wasn't until we were home from sailing and we thought, man, that was incredible. If we can do that, what else can we do? That I got this idea of I want to go back and I want to climb El Capitan. And I had never been there. My kids had heard about it my whole life.
Oh,
I had, my friends had been. I had pictures of it around the house or in my locker when I was a teenager.
taped up in our closet.
Something you want to talk
I
about?
just wanted to say, like, when we came back, right, it changed our relationship to fear. And he said gentle steps. We do a lot of counseling. Everyone who we're in relationship with or who might be involved, we're constantly um, in contact about how are you feeling? What do you think? And so they knew he really had this goal, but he didn't even feel worthy to step in the valley. And one of our daughters finally said, "Where is Yosemite?" And so he showed her on a map that it's in California. And she said, "Yosemite is in the United States of America and you have not been there." And it kind of broke through that shell he had about, like, well, I have to be able to climb some high grade to feel like it's worth the effort to go there. And because of what we had just been through, and we knew this about casting off, and underneath of that, I would say double click, and we talk about scouting trips. And I said, what if you and one of our daughters just go out there and the win is touching the base? Don't climb anything, just be in the valley and see what you think. And then, he sent back a picture of him, touching the base. It's actually one of the easier walk-ins to get to the base of El Cap. It's a challenging climb, but the walk-in is pretty straightforward. And he met people who were doing it. There were mentors. There was like a current moving that direction, and just touching it just gave them so much more enthusiasm to pursue it. And they climbed other stuff. And so it was like gravy on top of just showing up. But we used that casting off principle to then set the hook for actually accomplishing it, which he did like, I think a year later, or was it 2 years?
I think it was a year.
But it was like drop 40 pounds, get all new gear, climb regularly, camp as a family every month, little steps along the way.
So, I mean, to your question, Travis, about what's the most important step, there wouldn't be 7 if there didn't need to be 7. And so, it's a little bit tough to say which one's the most important, because I think the beginning part is about self-honesty and exploration and discovery and setting a vision. But then that's no good if you don't pair it up with action. And action can be very incremental and small, but if it's steady, then that compounds. As that's how wealth grows, is by compounding over time. And it's the same thing with action. And so you have to have some vision, you have to have some action, and then you also have to trust yourself, and then you also have to be willing to acknowledge your wins. And an important part of acknowledging your wins is because it just fills your confidence reservoirs. And when your confidence reservoirs are filled, and you do say, wow, if I can do that, what else can I do? And that's how you go from level to level to level upward, as an individual, as a couple, as a family. And there's no rush. It's not a race between anybody. We can all go at our own pace, and everybody can win.
Yeah. I love this part of it, because it was like the 7 at Sea book was like your struggles of getting there, just getting started, actually deciding which way are we going to actually go here. Like we finally made it to water, and then there was storms, there were problems, there were all sorts of things that you guys faced along the way, and then making it back. And I don't want to ruin the ending here, but you guys did celebrate. And but I think it was this, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing you guys say is like, it wasn't just this one adventure, but it's this adventure that broke through everything, that now set you off to, we're going to do more adventures. We're going to go do this. We're going to van through Europe. We're going to climb El Capitan, which is incredible, right? Most people are afraid to probably even touch that, like, or climbing to the top on ropes next to it, is death defying for most people. Like that's fearful enough. But scaling it is a whole other thing. So it sounds like what the kind of this 2.0 version is the compounding effect of what this experience did for you, your family, that will last, forever. So I love this, and maybe this is implied, but that's what I got from it after hearing you guys speak. I'm like, oh, this isn't just about their one experience. This is about like compounding this over your lifetime. So I love that. I love that word. In fact, it was so inspiring that for years and years and years, I told my wife, I want to take everybody to Denmark and show them where my grandma and where my dad lived and where I lived for a little while as a missionary for the church. And just been pushing it off for whatever reason, this reason. But then we have this window where I kind of felt like, similar to you guys, like you have this window, and I'm like, we need to do this. And for whatever reason, if it's a business thing, a family thing, I loved your way of sitting down and charting your course. That night, my wife and I, we opened up our notebooks, we charted our course, we went through the process, like we figured out all these things, and it's never going to be exactly like how you you designed it, but you've got to take that action, right? You got to cast off and do it, because it has the potential. Just doing that has the potential to be compounding over time what you do for whatever, business, personal, marriage, family, whatever you're doing that could change your life forever. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for for bringing this up. And which brings us to my next kind of section of, all right, so now you guys went from, stuck in this, this situation in Manhattan, where you were uncertain about any future, right, Eric, in your industry of what you were going to do, to now leading retreats, taking families, giving them the opportunity to basically say, hey, let us provide you with the opportunity. Let's give you this so that you can kind of plug and play. Talk about what you guys do now and how fascinating this is. I love this. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I think as Emily said earlier, it's a surprise to us, but now we run a business, the Awesome Factory, and a good chunk of our business is helping people try living on a sailboat for a week. So we do trips all over the world, French Polynesia, the Caribbean, the Bahamas, Mexico, Europe, and we just put together groups. Sometimes we take out groups, sometimes we take out families, and we just go sailing for a week. And it's not a class or a certification course, but I do, I teach sailing, and anybody that wants to try it out, I'm happy for. It's a very hands-on experience. And so if people want to steer the boat, I want them at the helm. If they want to learn how to navigate, I teach them how to read charts. If they want to raise and trim the sails, I'll show them how to do that. If they want to set the anchor, I just like to show people how it works, let them try it, and I'm just there to make sure everyone's safe and that they're successful in what they're trying. And we just live on the boat. We island hop around, or we sail the coastline or wherever we are.
They say, I want to go to that. And then
we say,
you do.
Let's go. We literally we customize the itinerary for every destination every time. And obviously I'll bring some suggestions about what I know of the area, but we'll sit down and say, all right, what's everyone interested in? Let's look at the weather for this week. Let's make a plan and let's go. Do we ever follow that plan exactly? No. But like you say, it never works out exactly the way you intend, but it usually turns out better than you expect. And so we just have a blast. And like I say, sometimes we're taking out, a mom and dad with their kids, or a couple of families that know each other. Oftentimes it'll be a group of couples or solo travelers, or a mix. Sometimes we'll take out sisters that want to go sailing together, or father sons. But it's a fantastic way to see places that in a way that you can't do any other way. You just can't do it from land. And to your point, it's one of these things, what we were talking about earlier, is that it's fun. It's fun for us. It's fun for me. And it's not heavy lifting anymore. Yes, there's a responsibility to being the group leader, but I like doing it as a way of introducing people to something that has become familiar and delightful and not hard for me. It can be, you can feel very much on the outside. Like I wouldn't, a lot of people say, I wouldn't know where to start getting a boat, or figuring out where to go, or how to organize the food, all those, or what if something goes wrong? We've just been through it. And there's very few things that come up that would phase us, or we wouldn't know what to do. And so anyway, it's just delightful. And we've been doing it. I would say I've been taking people sailing in some form or fashion since 2012. But now I think since COVID is when we really started to ramp up this part of our business. And we started it during COVID, ironically, but it's been fun. And we're actually on our way to Italy next week to take a group sailing through the Bay of Naples, around Capri and the Sorrento, the Amalfi Coast. And so it's.
And I would say for Eric, he tends to love the adventure and the skill set, and kind of the meeting new people. And for me, I tend to get most energized by the personal growth and the friendships that are formed, and the self-discovery that happens at the same time. So often people will come. What I know about travel is that when you are in one place that is your normal place, that you usually have your responsibilities and your rhythms, and then you take yourself out of that, those first 36 to 72 hours are so key. And after that, your brain has kind of let go of your old place and really embraced this new place where you are. And the trips are 5 to 7 days, but when you're doing something new, everything feels 3 times longer, right? And so um it's like, oh, I've never tried to tie a fender on before. I didn't even know what a mooring ball was, or I haven't, you know, it's all these new experiences, and it just crowds out the old rhythms, and it brings all these new ways of thinking and these new friendships. And it's such a simple, straightforward way of life to be on a boat, and so different from land that it just opens up all kinds of new thoughts. And so many times people will get to the other end of the week. And even though we're literally just sailing with them, we're not teaching any of our coaching principles at all. I mean, they obviously go through the process because it's all the sailing process, but they will go away braver and bolder and more clear about what matters to them, and that, hey, I don't want to waste my time or my money on this other thing anymore. This is what I really like. And they have fun, and so many times they come away with lifelong friends because of what they've shared together. So we'll have um, maybe text threads that we've started for a trip that will still be going off 9 months later as they're checking in on each other's health, or a natural disaster, or whatever happened with your family. And it's really beautiful.
Awesome. But I think what you mentioned there too, Emily, is like it gives people like these adventures, these trips, it gives you some space and time to think without having to think, sit down and think about something. I I love adventures, and I love traveling for the reason of just that getting. If sometimes you're so close to the trees, you can't see the forest in front of you. A lot of business owners, like, they don't want to go on vacation. They don't want to go on getaways and retreats. And I think you're missing out. It's one of the best things you can do, because once you remove yourself from all of the day to day, your subconscious mind can start to open up and give you ideas that you never thought of before. And you come back a changed person, transformed. But I love that. Yeah, Emily, you might not sit down with the worksheet and like, hey, here's the 7 steps, but
Yeah.
you're showing them, you're
Yeah.
taking them through that, and that is transformational. There's no doubt about it. I haven't been on your trips yet, but I've heard it and I've seen some of the testimonials. If people are interested, if they want to go to sea with the Orton family, or with the two of you guys out there, going from island to island, and these awesome tropical locations are all around the world where you go. Italy sounds amazing. Tell us what what should they, I mean, obviously, tell them where they can go to learn more information. But what could they do first? Like, what's something to do to prepare themselves for something like this?
Ooh, I love that question. I think for me, the answer of like, what is the most important part of the process is it's all resting on this idea that we recognize we have a choice. Sometimes I like to ask, like, if you don't know you have a choice, do you have a choice? you know, and
Ooh.
this, these kind of experiences really open that up. So, one of the questions we love to ask is, what could go right? I think that's a very good starting place. Whatever is something that where you have worry, and I might suggest starting with something that's really small, although it could be something big as well, and bringing that question to shine some light on it. Say, what could go right? Actually write down the answers to that. See how that feels in your body, if it feels like scary and shrinking, or if it feels like a relief and expansion. And then take a small action. We spoke at a real estate conference last year, and the guy who was doing the video filming of it all, he heard us giving this keynote, what could go right. And he told us afterwards, like the next morning, he had an interview he was really nervous about, but he just asked himself, what could go right? And he went in with a completely different attitude, had an incredible interview. Sounds like he got the job he was,
He
the
was
gig he was looking
pitching a
for.
project, or being, yeah.
Yeah, and we just thought you literally can start with just that one question, what could go right? And we could talk a lot more about how it allows you to create your own, what do we call it? when you have the list of things that could go right, you create your own opportunity costs, right? You're like, oh, now there's all these things I'm going to miss out on if I don't take even a small bit of action. But yeah, I think that's recognizing you have agency, asking what could go right, writing it down, and taking some action that to you feels maybe incremental. And that's how confidence builds. We really believe in that atomic habits principle, just like
Yeah.
a little bit at a time. But that one question is a good place to start.
I do think that is a good
Yeah,
place
go
to
ahead
start.
there.
And to your question about if somebody wants to come sailing with us, you don't have to prepare. We specialize in taking beginners, people who know nothing. In fact, if you know a lot, you probably don't want to sail with us. You can just go on your own. But I love taking out people who have no experience and no exposure to it. And
but it's an attitude, right? And the attitude of like a willingness to learn. That would be the thing I would say have in place is like, I might even be scared, but I'm excited to learn something new and try something new. And I feel safe enough with these people to try it with them.
in fact, here are the pitfalls that I would caution people to avoid. People will say, oh, that sounds so cool, I should do that. But I can't because I get seasick, or I can't because my spouse is not adventurous, or I can't go because I have to take care of my sick parents, or and it's very easy to talk yourself out of it. And this goes back to the point of what I was saying earlier, is that under the umbrella of duty and responsibility, we will suppress these things that really energize us. And we'll do it in these very innocuous ways of saying, I would love to do that, but I can't because
it's someone else's fault, and I resent not living my full life because they're my blockade.
And so I'm not trying to guilt anybody into going sailing with us. That's not the goal. But I am saying that if there's something that you want to do in your life, be very aware of the reasons you're giving yourself for not doing it. And if it's coming sailing with us, great.
Super easy.
Super easy.
Come to our website.
Go to the awesomefactory.nyc. There will be a big red button that says sail with us or something like that. And you'll get all the information there. But whatever it is that you want to do, just be very mindful of the roadblocks that you may be setting up for yourself. And if you come with us, we love to help you, sort of knock over those roadblocks in whatever area of your life.
Love it.
Anyway, just that you don't.
Yeah.
We give people packing lists. We tell you all the information to how to get there and all that. But
I would say they are focused on people who want to learn, who want to be hands-on. They're all alcohol-free, no drugs, no smoking. Like we're going to build a team and we're going to have an adventure together.
Yeah, not a party boat. It's a growing boat.
Yeah, a growing boat, a learning boat.
There we
go. I love it. Sounds awesome. And I know you guys are incredible people, and I would encourage anybody who's interested in adventure to not hesitate at all to hang out with the Ortons. They are incredible people, and they know what they're doing. They have done this many, many, many times. But definitely pick up the book. You can get the book right on the Awesome Factory website as well, right? AwesomeFactoryNYC.com.
Amazon,
Yeah.
Audible, and then if and our podcast is free, the What Could Go Right podcast. So whatever price point you're at right now, hopefully there's something that can help you live your best life.
Get out from your library.
So 3 things I feel like people can latch onto right now is ask that question, like, what could go right? When my wife and I sat down, and we're like, okay, I really have this burning desire to take my family to Scandinavia and go to Denmark and Norway and Sweden. And we even, looked at, could we get over to Finland? Maybe not this time, but, we had this grand adventure, like what could go right? The thing that kept coming back to me was my family, my children could develop a love of their fatherland, their place where they're actually, both my wife and my families come from Denmark. A very large population come from Denmark, and I'm like, wow, this is why I love it, because I was there when I was a kid. Like, I want them to experience it. So you're like, hey, that's what could go right. And then everything else, that was the internal motivation. I talk a lot about that in my book, Achieving Balance, actually, over there, Achieving Balance, about values, about like that's the internal motivation that you need. You can have Tony Robbins or the Ortons telling you, hey, do this, every day. But yeah, hey, you guys are mentioning the same sentence. That's pretty awesome, right?
Pretty good.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome factory-ish right there. But the reality is that when you have that big dream, that goal, those values that you want to move towards, you're going to take the steps. Like you're going to figure things out. The details oftentimes get figured out. And I'm a big picture guy, so that's easy for me to say. Maybe, but you've talked about it. Done is better than perfect. So having the experience will then compound. And I think one thing that might get a struggle, talking personally, is that we set these grand adventures. And my wife and I first were like, okay, we're going to map out, we're going to do Italy and France and Spain, and then we're going to go to the UK. And then we're like, oh my gosh, that's a year-long adventure. Like that is not. And so we had to pare it back down, and we're like what can we do? And I think the thing for us was like, yeah, we've got this window, but it's not going to be the only window in life. It's not going to be the only time we're going to, do these adventures. So we're going to allow that to be like, what can go right next time? How can we expand upon this? So anyway, I love this, the idea of what could go right. Just getting past those fears, just cast off. I think that was mentioned several times, getting past that fear. And jumping onto this adventure, the Awesome Factory. You guys would have an awesome time being, at sea, joining this incredible trip, wherever you want to go. So that's another action step, but at least get the book. Read 7 at Sea. That's my number one recommendation. Like these other action steps are good. Read the book. You will be inspired to do these other things. And if anything, get more information about all the 7 steps or the framework, and be inspired for their journey in whatever you need to be inspired about in your life, your business, your marriage, your family. So please go to that website, the Awesome Factory NYC or the Awesome Factory.nyc. Is that it?
Yeah,
Okay.
nailed it.
.nyc, that's right.
Okay.
It's in New York City.
Yes, of course. So great reviews, incredible testimonials on that, and love your video on that. You guys can get to know the Ortons a little bit more that way. Last ideas, comments, things that would help somebody to get started taking this adventure into their own life.
I love one thing that you brought up about deciding that this isn't going to be our only window. And we love to say we've got to just get rid of the once in a lifetime mentality, because it puts too much pressure on us. And it's so much better if you go in thinking, this is my first time, and give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of space, and you'll enjoy it way more than if you think to yourself, this is my only time. Too much pressure, you're more likely to crack.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Eric, anything you want to add?
This is your first time to Denmark.
Yes, that's right.
I'd also push back and say, why not take a year?
Yeah.
Buy a one-way ticket, get to Denmark, do Paris, France, and then say, anyway.
That's where you got to know your internal motivations,
Yeah,
right?
but
otherwise people like this will talk you.
Yeah.
I'll mess with you.
Yeah.
No,
that's why you guys are so good together, right? You've got both of the constant push and pull, and that's what I did see about the book, which I absolutely can recommend it without any reservations, is that watching the two of you work together, or not work together, and come back together and figure this out. Like this could have been a disaster. It could have been, but you both you come with such different skills and abilities to work together. You're a great example, and I appreciate that. I mean that. You're great examples of what I believe balanced couples are really all about. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. We're not even perfect together. I think we have a shared belief in Christ, and I know that Christ perfects us. Even then, he allows us to be imperfect together and try to make this adventure of a lifetime happen. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the Balanced Growth Show, for making this happen between all of your world travels and seeing the two of you. Just it's a real pleasure to be with you guys again. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Travis. We love hanging out with you.
Yeah, that's true.
Check out their website again, theawesomefactory.nyc. Grab the book 7 at Sea wherever you want to grab that. And if you haven't yet, grab my book, Marry and Grow Rich, at marryandgrowrichbook.com. I think these works actually do really well to complement each other. Until next time, we'll see you on the Balanced Growth Show.